You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith. Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV.
I'm not getting anything.
I love it. Well, let's get started on the show. I love that. We're sorry, folks. We're just telling stories about our days of filming things and getting all messed up. I guess it's like a TV host producer problem.
That's awesome.
It's inside jokes. It doesn't matter.
What we do.
Guys, welcome into the Manhattan After Show right here on AFTERBUZZ TV. You've got a little Akon playing in the background because he was locked up at one point. I think Akon's out of jail now. Not
He
out
went
of
to jail?
Yeah, he definitely went to jail.
Oh, goodness.
Not out of jail is Sid Lau, who we will talk about in a second. But thank you for tuning in. You're watching Manhattan on AFTERBUZZ, Season 1, Episode 2, The Prisoner's Dilemma, aptly titled. I'm Bobby DeMuro with Marisa Serafini.
What's up, guys?
All right, let's jump into it. We've got a bunch of good stuff coming later. We want to talk iTunes and do some other stuff in a minute, but let's jump into the show first. Sid Lau, let's talk about him, because I have a lot of questions for you about him. The way we left it last week, we weren't sure if what he was saying was the truth. We weren't sure if he was just taking the schematics, taking the diagrams, and actually wanted to sell them to Eastman Kodak because of his daughter's illness, or if he was actually a spy and he was just lying to everybody.
Yeah.
Based on what I saw this week, I think he was a spy and he was lying to everybody. Why would you behave the way he behaved if you weren't the worst kind of guilty?
Oh, you mean like at the end when he was
Yes.
trying to escape? I mean, I think we'll definitely get to that point. But honestly, I thought he was actually being sincere because he was sincere and genuine, because he kept saying over and over and over again that, you know, he's not a spy. He did this for his family and whatnot. And then, you know, I admit I did start to question if he was a spy or not, but I still think he was pretty genuine.
I thought he was a spy all the way. I was giving him the benefit of the doubt last week.
Maybe I was just giving him benefit of the doubt for being a new character that we're still trying to learn. So it's hard to say if he was a spy or not.
You're just being too nice to this guy. Now, one argument on your side probably is, and he said it too, when Frank talks to him about, you know, getting him into the army as a soldier, getting drafted, tell him you're a radio operator, you won't see the front lines, blah, blah, blah. Sid was so devastated about being drafted into the army, he wouldn't survive a day. Maybe even if he's not a spy, he's at the end of his rope doing that, and he's like, I have nothing left to lose, so I'm gonna go do this, and I'm gonna... He didn't intend to get shot, but that's what happened, spoiler alert.
No,
I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna try to escape, that's it, because I'm desperate.
I thought he was actually happy when he found out that that was his only way out, because he might have just gotten executed, but, I mean, we know he got shot. But I think he was kind of happy that the fact that, hey, I can still live, I'm not going to get imprisoned or whatever's going to happen to me. So I think he was actually happy that
I totally
he had
disagree.
it
I think he was so hopeless. Go ahead.
But also, we did find out he is Chinese. And if you think about it, during World War II, China was actually our ally. So I'm giving him also that added benefit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have to be allies with China. Because if we weren't, then America's screwed,
Yeah.
pretty much. And especially during World War II. So I will give him, because he's Chinese, he seemed genuine. And he was happy that he does have an out and he can live. And he still has the opportunity to, like, start a new life, even though he did something wrong. I mean, I was giving him that.
I understand that, and there's a huge distinction between being Chinese and Japanese or any other ethnicity in Asia at that time or today. There's obviously, these are different countries. It's like saying you're American versus Canadian. It's a huge distinction. However, and we should go back and look at the history on this, and I'll read some stuff this week to figure out what's going on. The line in the show, it came elsewhere, but the line in the show of a distinction without a difference, do you remember when that was said? Somebody said that to Frank about the bomb, I believe. But it's a great line, distinction without a difference. The fact that Sid Lau might be a kind of a traitor, might be kind of a spy, and is of Asian descent, to them, is that a distinction without a difference? It doesn't matter if he's Chinese or Japanese, he's the other to Americans, and so they still have to not trust him. Just like the guy interrogating him is kind of like, dude, I know you're a spy. Let's start at the start. I've got your family history, you know? And so for him, for the interrogators, Chinese, Japanese, it doesn't matter. It's somebody with a foreign background who has done some questionable things in terms of spying and maybe being a traitor. We can't trust this guy because he's working with somebody else and it ain't us, you know?
Yeah, but you mentioned that the guy who was doing the interrogation, he mentioned the family, and he did his research and his background on Sid, but not once did he say, oh, I know what other places you work for and who you work for, like your past career and your projects that you work for. It's like none of those were any suspicious things that would lead us to believe that he is a spy, because if he did the research on his family, on the people in his, that he knows about Sid and his life, then I think he would have led to be like, hey, you also did this project, who, you're connected to these people, then that would have given the audience more idea that he is a spy.
Well, and they almost got there. They almost got there because he mentioned Frank Winter took a leave of absence in 1936, I believe was the year. Pause, and then they took a left turn and we never heard what that was, which that'll come up to play in predictions here in a minute, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But Sid, the interesting thing I thought with Sid was also the interrogation. At first, when Sid says, I have due process in the law, I want to see a lawyer, I want to be charged, whatever it is.
He's an American citizen, too.
Yeah, and
he's
not a foreigner. Exactly. And it was interesting to see how the guy says, this is not subject to the Constitution, this land is not American land, we are nowhere, I am no one. At first, I thought he was going to insinuate that Sid was going to be sent to like an internment camp, like what we were talking about earlier. I thought that's kind of what he meant, that this is not American land, you're in a war prison or whatever. But he just, I think, more meant like, this is such an underground interrogation, you're on your own, buddy. Sorry, you shouldn't have done that.
And that's what's scary, because just the whole project in general is that even this whole town full of all these people, and the fact that they're not even under a proper jurisdiction yet, that makes it also question whether he is a spy or not.
Yeah.
But I will still give Sid the benefit of the doubt that I believe he was still genuine.
Interesting. Okay,
and also add in the fact that he was an American citizen. He has the constitutional right to do that. So I'm like, he knows his rights. He is an American.
I just wonder, if you are totally innocent, why you would do what he did at the end, especially after having an out. Your out is that you're going into the military. I know that's not a great out. You still might die. I think Frank was half lying to him when he's saying, become a radio operator. You'll come home. You won't die. Dude, it's World War II. You have no idea.
Yeah.
Frank on one hand is talking about how many American soldiers die every day. And then he's going to turn around and say to Sid, you won't die. You'll come home. It's like, I don't know if you believe that. I don't think Sid believes that. But Sid has the out. And then I know Sid did not intend to get killed at the very end, obviously, and we'll talk about that in a second. But remember, Sid physically assaulted a military policeman in his little prison chamber and escaped. So it wasn't just like he weaseled his way out non-violently. He started everything off with violence. He stole a gun and he escaped. So from then, he was already being kind of violent and desperate, and I'm thinking, dude, you already have an out. It's not the perfect situation, but when you steal a military policeman's gun, you're in a worse situation than you were, man.
And to your credit, I did think that too. I'm like, you do have an out. Why are you acting now suspicious?
Yeah.
So like I did question, but unfortunately, his character didn't live long enough for us to get all the answers.
There is one thing I need to talk about with Sid, and that is the scene with Frank after Frank tells him, become a radio operator, blah, blah, blah. And Sid starts asking him about the project. And Frank says the project's back on, whatever it is. And Sid says to him, you know what you said, I can put 2 and 2 together. And I don't know how you took that, but I took it to mean in episode 1, remember when Frank met with the FBI or the DOJ, or whoever that guy was?
Yeah.
And Frank was like, I'm not going to horse trade one of my men for stuff. I'm not going to turn in one of my men. And he wouldn't give up Sid just to get, the IBM machines or whatever he wanted back. I think from Sid's perspective, because Frank's team, Frank's project is back on, and Sid is now imprisoned and has his little thing, I think it looks like to Sid that Frank did turn him in.
Yeah,
and Frank did turn on him, and he did trade him in. And even though it doesn't appear to us that Frank turned him in and traded on him, Sid doesn't know that. And I think maybe that's what caused the desperation in Sid to say, everyone's turned on me now. Obviously, the government thinks I'm a traitor, and that's bad enough, and I'm screwed with that. But my own team, which knows I wasn't a traitor, has now flipped on me, so I have nothing else. So I guess I have to get desperate, And that's when he got offended with Frank and said, I can put 2 and 2 together, a.k.a. I see what you did. I see what you're doing to me. I understand the bigger picture. Screw you, because you did it to me, And
also, we did see Frank because they are true, genuine friends, too. So you can see Frank as guilty as he felt of turning Sid in, he did want Sid to live.
Yeah.
So he gave him that.
And it was so much of a priority. He wanted Sid to live. He leaves the blast site, which we'll talk about in a minute, but he leaves that blast site right when they're about to blast to go and deal with Sid, and then he has to come back. That's how much of a priority it was.
And it also shows Frank's level of desperation of he will do anything to get this project going. His project that he needs to, you know, start this atomic bomb.
Last thing about Sid,
even if it is turning in his friends.
Yeah, well, we'll see how many other people in this project start flipping on each other, and if anybody else on the team finds out about Sid or what might have happened with Sid or whatever. That'll be an interesting thing going forward, because Sid can't talk. It's going to have to be on somebody else now. The last question about the Sid story before we move on is the military policeman, the guy who shot him, the young kid who shot him.
He was too gun happy, trigger happy.
I totally disagree with you. I think he was totally in the right to do it because Sid had the gun. He was pulling up the gun. And from the kid's perspective, let's say you were sitting where Sid is and the guy, the military policeman's like behind you and you're like looking at the thing. And I'm the guy who shot him, the young guy. Like I'm coming in, I look in your car and I see the gun on your thing and you're going to get it or whatever, which Sid was definitely doing. And he didn't raise it yet, but he was going down there. I think he definitely had right to do it.
I mean, he might have had the right, but also we see throughout the whole episode that the kid wanted action. He wanted to be in the war. He was trying to get it transferred so he could go to Europe to see the action, the live action. So I can, seeing that before the whole Sid, you know, shooting, it made me think that, hey, it was like a perfect opportunity to finally do something. And I mean, it might have been overstepping, but he did ultimately, you know, he did protect Sid. But in those situations too, you could have like disarmed him. You didn't have to shoot him.
But he was
head.
in the car. The other guy had his back turned. How would you have done it? I think that was the only thing he could have done at that point. Literally.
Right in the head.
Because Sid had the gun on the seat. You couldn't have, by the time it would have taken you to open the door, run through and grab the gun, Sid would have already pulled him up. And I think you had to have shot him. And it was even more weird to me that the kid, the young guy who shot him, looks in the car, sees Sid's dead, sees the gun right there, looks specifically at the gun because we get a camera shot of the gun. And then he goes, "What did I do?" And I'm like, dude, I'm not saying we should just be killing everybody and go trigger happy. But in this situation, especially knowing what Sid ended up doing to get there, escaping and stuff, you did the right thing without realizing it. You know, there's a manhunt for Sid right now, and they're about to find out he's already dead.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I didn't think the kid did anything too wrong, but it is a good point about the being trigger happy and wanting to go to Europe, and it underscores the point of like how many young guys were sending off to war who were like 18 or 19. And as much as they
don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, and as much as they want to fight or not, they're not emotionally ready to do stuff like that. And who is ever? But it's
especially during that time.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a lot of Americans go over to Europe. They got transferred over there. So, I mean, and there have been people who, you know, who are really excited and just really wanted to see the action. So doing that, I think, you know, again, he got a little too trigger happy.
Well, poor guy. I wonder what's going to happen to him if we'll ever see him again. We probably will never see Sid again because 2 episodes into Manhattan, we haven't seen a ton of like.
I think we're going to see Sid's body.
Oh, sure, absolutely. I just mean like I meant like flashback-wise.
Oh,
we haven't seen like a ton of flashbacks. It's been fairly linear so far, so I don't know if we'll see flashbacks of Sid, and I'm not sure it really matters because we never learned family stories other than what's supposedly going on with his daughter.
And we know his work is already done. He has the schematics. He already did his job.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right, hey guys, as we transition real quick, I want to read one quick thing. We've got a great new sponsor here on AfterBuzz, and it's a good thing we have it on Manhattan because first off, Manhattan this week on iTunes, the #1 show, I believe.
Yep.
It's just
Number
us,
one.
is what it is.
know.
No, it's probably not us. It's definitely the Manhattan's a good show.
I like to think of it.
But because of that, and because we're proud to be the #1 show, guys, Walmart has a new savings catcher plan. This is an interesting thing because I know you and I go to stores like this all the time, and everybody does. And you go in to shop and buy like $20 worth of items, and you end up with like $400, and you don't have the money to do that. Well, here's the deal. So Walmart has this thing, no more driving all over town or searching through ads or anything like that. And they have something called Savings Catcher, where all you do, you enter your Walmart receipt after you go to the store, and if you have any eligible item you purchased was advertised for a lower price at another store in the area, Savings Catcher will give you a Walmart e-gift card for the difference. So you're going to end up saving money anyways. Restrictions do apply, but it's pretty easy. You can enter your receipt online, or you can enter it with the Walmart app on your phone. I need a new phone. Maybe I should go to Walmart for that. And Savings Catcher does all the work for you. Savings Catcher is a guaranteed win for everyone who uses it. You're going to get Walmart's guaranteed low prices, and you're also going to get the best advertised deals in your area. So start with Savings Catcher today. All you've got to do is walmart.com/savingscatcher, all one word, enter your receipt, and boom.
That's great. And Walmart is so family friendly, and they're so user friendly as well. So to help everyone out with that, I mean, that's great that they're doing it to help. And
they're
shopping price.
And they're AfterBuzz TV friendly. I mean, I know it's not it's not the most fun thing to do a live read in the middle of a show, but if you're going to do it, it's cool that a company's going to support us. And hey, I love it.
And Walmart's a great store to also help with just matching prices of other competitors as well.
And if you are going to Walmart and you want to send anything to me personally, if you want to send cookies or cake or, no, I'm just kidding. I won't give my address. Here, you can send it to P.O. Box. I'm just teasing. All right, let's get to topic number 2 right now. Let's talk about Liza and Abby. We don't see quite as much of Liza as we did in the first episode, or I guess not quite as deep. We had a lot of deep scenes with her and Frank, and we don't see quite the same Abby as we do in the first episode, but there are some important things to talk about. The first is Abby starting that fire.
That was funny. I mean, and
Abby needs to go to Walmart for new curtains.
Absolutely.
There you go.
And probably a new washer.
That's the tie-in.
And new stove as well. But I actually do like this relationship that's developing between them, because we know the men's side of that relationship is not too well. Frank and Charlie, that's a whole different story. But Liza helping Abby out in this way, because Liza's been very experienced. She knows what it's like to live in this town. To help Abby out in that way, I thought it was good on Liza. And that seemed genuine, too.
I think Liza's the most genuine. I think of all the characters in the show so far, Liza also has the best perspective. And I feel like if Liza found out what was going on with the Manhattan Project, with Oppenheimer and all this stuff, Liza, of all the characters in the world, would probably take it the best and the most logical and the most level-headed. And she'd be affected by it, but she's the most mature and the smartest without a doubt.
And also she's very educated. I mean, statistically, people who are more educated can deal with stress and handle situations better than people who aren't. So if Liza did figure it out, she can, yes, like you said, can definitely handle it.
So are you saying if you're anxious and stuff and you're whatever, you just go get a master's degree and it gets better?
Yeah.
Go drop $100,000.
Of course not. I'm just saying statistically people
no, I
deal
agree
with
with
that.
you. I agree. And she's more cerebral, so she can probably handle it a little bit better.
Absolutely.
She's not
better
your
at
average housewife.
compartmentalizing.
Yeah, and she's not your average housewife.
And also, she has great connections. She knows people too. I mean, and she even helped Liza, get the peyote to help pay the cook and the commissioner.
How many times have you
to get food?
How many times have you given peyote to a cook named Tiny just to get a hot plate of food?
All the time.
All the time.
All the time.
This has happened like 5 times in my life.
I mean, this is a daily thing.
You can't go through a month in LA without giving peyote to a cook named Tiny to get some food. And New Ben's engineering for us today. New Ben, Nick, of course, is his name, but we call him New Ben. New Ben, how many times have you given peyote to a cook to get a good meal?
I cook all my meals myself.
So
okay,
you're
saying
it's a personal peyote thing for him.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know that any of us have
But I find it
actually.
fascinating. That's their way of payment, because back in the 1940s, monetary value was completely different than it is today.
And monetary value in that government perspective wouldn't maybe talk as much. And she says that. She's like, if you go through the administration, you're going to wait a year to get this stuff. If you just give him a little peyote, he'll take care of you.
You can give it to you. You can get your food now. You can have a hot plate in a few minutes.
I want to know, this is kind of a weird prediction. It has nothing to do with really thematically the show at all. But if she's got all this peyote now and she knows where to get it now, I want to know if Abby is going to use it, because Abby and Charlie have kind of a little, good sex life.
Oh, totally.
I want to know if they experiment with it at all, because they're both a little wild at home, in a good way.
I think they have a very healthy relationship.
Absolutely.
Just them two in general.
Yeah.
So, I mean, add peyote to the mix. I mean, it could be. But we know that the peyote wasn't used for the food.
That's a different kind of hot plate than food, am I right?
Absolutely.
So let's talk about this dinner, because we see, obviously, Abby and Liza. We see Charlie come over.
Tension.
Poor Charlie. Now, Frank is not necessarily in the wrong to be upset with Charlie, but poor Charlie getting kind of kicked around like a puppy dog a little bit. But then, now let me be fair about this. Charlie's kicked around like a puppy dog almost all night by Frank, and Frank's in a bad mood and he's sour and whatever.
Yeah.
But by the end of the night, Charlie does say some pretty hurtful stuff when he's sitting on that couch. He kind of deserved to get kicked out of the house.
Absolutely. And because, we see Charlie's very new, still very green, even though he's very educated and smart. But Frank has the experience. He's been there longer. He knows what he's after. He's trying to get his main priority is to just get his own project started.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care anybody about Akeley or anyone in Akeley's team, which includes Charlie. So, and Charlie's, again, the newcomer, so he doesn't care. Charlie's no one to him right now.
And Charlie's no one to Akeley right now. Not to jump too far off Liza and Abby and that kind of relationship, but Charlie's an outsider to Frank, as he probably should be, and he's an outsider to Akeley still, too, based on what he's been talking with Akeley about, you know, bombs and the way that they should make it or whatever. And Akeley's like, you're just a cog in a wheel, pal. You're one of 1,000 pieces.
I know. And it's very, very somewhat patronizing to Charlie, because we know, being part of Akeley's team, no one likes Akeley in general. And then if Akeley's going to treat his own team like that and say stuff, then, you know, that's just another thing that would help, you know, predictions down the road, that will help Charlie, you know, completely segregate himself from Akeley's and go to Frank's team.
I'm telling you, Manhattan is so much like Twister. We talked about it last week. But you've got Cary Elwes's team. Cary Elwes was the actor who did the bad team on Twister, right? Yeah. Cary Elwes's team, he doesn't necessarily care about the people. He's just, everyone functions in the cog of this, like, really nice wheel. It's just like Manhattan and Twister.
And we know with Frank that he actually treats his team like family.
Yes.
He went out of his way, left his own test project, testing for the bomb, to go help Sid, even if Sid might have been guilty, who knows.
Oh, Sid, and that's the thing, he goes and helps Sid, even though Sid is already persona non grata. Whether it means he gets killed, he gets interned, he gets, whatever happens to him, he's never coming back. But Frank still felt loyal enough to go help Sid. That's a good point.
Yes, and Frank is more loyal than Akeley will ever be.
100%. Akeley would have just thrown him away and said, whatever.
Well, Akeley doesn't even care about his own family. It's like, you can sleep with my wife, and, you know, just stuff like that.
Who says that about something so...
Who says something like that?
I respect that what Frank was trying to do with the bomb test was probably very difficult, and there probably was a very small chance of it succeeding. But why would you even say stuff like that? It's a weird thing to say.
But I think it's just to establish, especially back in that time, I wouldn't believe that line either, but I think it's just to establish to the audience that Akeley really doesn't care about anyone but himself.
Yeah. Which well, we'll get to Akeley when we learn, I guess, a little bit more about him. One funny thing about, going back to Frank and Charlie in this thing, how about Frank's daughter babysitting? Drinking alcohol. Haven't we all been there? Let's just be honest, where you drink alcohol and then you kind of like, oh, I got to refill it a little bit with water so it doesn't look like I took any.
and smoke some peyote as well.
See, that's the thing.
She had the peyote.
Exactly. That's the thing.
She was conked out.
She had to have.
She passed out on that couch.
She had to have had a little bit. That's a great point. She maybe took what they were going to use.
Oh, absolutely. Because we know, because she found it. So it was like, it's assumed that she did, you know, use that. But, I mean, never have I been in that position when I was babysitting. And I will say, I used to be a babysitter, but I was very responsible, especially at that age.
I feel like I've never babysat, but I feel like the temptation to do that. If I were house sitting, the temptation to do that would be so great. If I were babysitting and there was another human involved, I'd be like, probably not.
Yeah.
There's a kid here.
Let's pass on that.
Probably not.
but I did find the story, the side Beeline story, very humorous, and I mean, we definitely have to have some levity, especially in hard-hitting, very dramatic stories that are already going on. Is that it's nice to have, because right now in this community, we're only surrounded by mostly adults, and to have and add the younger generation in there, just like how they're dealing with everything that's going on too, because they are part of that community, just like how they're living. It's fun to add some humor into that. Yeah,
I think so. The last thing to make, maybe the last point to make on Frank and Liza and Charlie and Abby before we get to the big thing, the plutonium, the whole, you know, the real crux of this story.
Yes.
The idea, some of the things that Charlie says to Frank, you know, you're a meteor that's going to go extinct, and then Frank turns around and says, what is it with little boys and dinosaurs, which is a great line.
Very patronizing.
Very patronizing. And the whole sinking ship idea, Charlie saying, I feel bad for the suckers in your group that you were taking down with you. It's really, when you get in an argument with somebody, it's really, how do I put it this way? It cuts them deep if you say something bad about them. It cuts them even deeper if you say something bad about somebody else because you feel sorry for that person that they have to deal with you. Like when you make it that patronizing that it's like, you're not even worth the insult. I'm going to insult people around you who have to deal with you because I feel bad for them.
Yeah.
That gets so low, especially as close as friends or whatever you want to call it, family, Frank is with his team. So when you insult Frank's team, you insult Frank.
Absolutely. And it goes to show that, I mean, hopefully Charlie will pick up on that. They like Akeley doesn't give two craps about me.
Well, I think that the left turn for Charlie not only was Frank kind of pushing him out of the way and being dismissive of him and all that sort of stuff, but the other left turn was when Charlie let Frank's team into the lab. And he let the woman into the lab, and then the guys came in, and Charlie was all business, and he was like, okay, you know, what are you doing? Let's do. And the guy, whatever they were talking about gravity or something, and
Kryptonite,
yeah,
and gravity.
Exactly. They were talking about kryptonite, and they say something, and Charlie corrects them, and they go, dude, we're talking about kryptonite, not plutonium.
Yeah.
And Charlie's guard, you could see slowly let down, like, wait a minute. It's okay to have fun with science. Like, I don't have to be the type A writing the most amazing paper guy.
Exactly. And
these people are cool.
And I love this interaction, too, because now we see Charlie actually gets to interact with another team.
Yeah.
And then be like, hey, these guys are kind of like me, and I like them, and they're personal, and we can bond in that way.
Yeah,
So I think that's good.
And it's like every science fiction or adventure or fantasy movie story, whatever. You have your main characters, you have all this sort of stuff, and then you kind of have good ones. Kind of have a team of people that are a little quirky, a little funny. This is another comedic kind of release for something like this. But it's like one thing we think about science is science nerds, you know, whatever that looks like at this time period or that. So this time period, it's cool to see guys like that in this time period, so everything is not so serious. Because Frank is so deathly serious, literally deathly serious, because that's what he's consumed with, all the time. So it's nice that some of his team is like, oh, these guys are talking about Superman and gravity on Krypton. That's cool.
And it's good because we also had the similarity between Frank and Charlie, because we know Charlie's always isolated at night when the team tries to invite him out. He's like, no, I'm going to stay here and be the last person to work. He's always the last one.
It's that Protestant work ethic.
If he keeps if he keeps going along that path, he's going to be Frank in like 20 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's good to show that he can be personal and actually start making friends in this area.
Although, well, I think, but see, that's where the left turn comes in. It shows him he can be personable. It shows him he starts making friends, but he gets caught. And I think when he gets caught, we didn't really see it, but he must have gotten chewed out, punished, whatever. And that probably caused him to shut down even deeper. And instead of saying, hey, I can make friends with these people, it's like, screw these people. They got me in trouble. Now it's really nothing with them, and I have to be totally black and white with them. You know?
Absolutely, and I think that will also go kind of into prediction territory, that we're going to definitely see the ramifications of that, because I don't even think he was supposed to let the woman into the lab, let alone the other people that came in as well. So we're going to definitely see some chastising, because he interacted with another group, and then, you know, passing notes. I mean, they could blow that up into anything. It's like, you're becoming a spy. You're passing our personal, confidential information to other groups, you know, who could do whatever. So we're definitely going to see, like, the fallout of that.
Yeah. We'll see. I can't wait.
We'll see.
Let's move on now. Speaking of the fallout of that, no pun intended, little nuclear radiation joke. Let's move on to, I like that segue. Thank you for saying fallout. Right, we needed to move on. Let's move on to the plutonium itself. And really the first interesting scene, the first scene was fascinating in this show today, in the episode with the guy. I don't think we ever got a name for either one of these guys, the guy carrying the box and the cab driver, but it doesn't matter because we're probably never going to see him again. Nope. It's just the idea of the story itself. And
I found it fascinating with the box, you know, the Valencia oranges, which I believe are actually native to California, but knowing that it traveled from Chicago, the Windy City, to Los Alamos, and I'm like, okay, so we know something's out of place. Pandora's box.
Yeah, interesting. I kind of like that. I like that scene with how suspicious the kid was. I would like to know more of who the kid was and where this came from, but whatever.
I think it was just a messenger.
It could have been just
the plutonium.
This is how they transported plutonium in the 40s, by the way. Could you imagine doing something like that today with something like that?
Oh, heck
It'd be ridiculous.
I mean,
but
I can't imagine TSA. That'd be crazy. I
can't imagine the cab fare from Chicago. He didn't take a cab from Chicago, though. He definitely...
Well, he did, because we saw the taxi...
saying we're driving for 2 days.
Yeah. The taxi rate was at $473.50, and especially the time...
In those, absolutely.
Back then, that was a lot of money, so he was definitely probably backed by the government to transport this plutonium.
Yeah, and the plutonium comes, and this is the difference, and it is, for the record for all you guys, where did I write it down? It is 150 micrograms, I believe.
Yeah.
I know I wrote it down, and now I can't find it, but it's okay. We know it's 150 micrograms of plutonium-239, and then we sort of learn a little bit more about Dr. Barath, this Hungarian guy, I believe, who is not directing the project, because Oppenheimer is, but has some say in logistics of the project and things like that.
And he can divide it up into whoever needs it.
And he's not giving any plutonium to Frank's team, of course.
Nope, of course not.
Unfortunately.
Because they were just disbanded, but now they're together again, so...
So, see, why bring them together again? That's my other question. Because Frank...
They have two teams against each other. That's what makes the story interesting.
Oh, for sure, for a TV perspective. But like from the military's perspective, if you're going to disband them, if Frank didn't horse trade Sid, which we think he didn't, it appears he didn't, what's the reason for bringing... Maybe the military or Oppenheimer, whoever, is just a little curious and says, you know what? Maybe they do have something right. But if you're going to bring them back together, give them some resources. Give them a little bit of something. Give them some IBM machines and 10 micrograms of plutonium, or else it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but also the meeting that we had with Akeley and Frank, you know, talking about why should Frank's team get any plutonium, because their project is literally based off in theory. There's nothing substantial. There's no rudimentary, you know, whatever he was saying. There's like nothing to prove that his project will work. So they're not going to give plutonium to a project that hypothetically probably won't work, even though we know it does.
Yeah.
Compared to his that are like hard-hitting facts.
Yeah.
That is provable. It's tangible evidence.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I guess the thing with the plutonium that I found interesting too was the way... I can't wait to see how Akeley's team uses it. And I can't wait to see testing with Akeley's team with it or whatever's going to happen. Because the only test we've seen thus far in 2 episodes is this little, you know, pipe bomb test is what it was that didn't end up working out. So I'm curious where and when the plutonium comes into testing, because they did mention when it came in something about Chicago wanting it back. And and I don't know if half that might have been kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke, haha, or... You can't give the plutonium back once you're using it.
Yeah.
So I don't really understand if they just needed to synthesize something or if they're actually going to test with it.
I think for right now, obviously it's for testing purposes.
Yeah.
But maybe Chicago was just thinking, hey, we gave you a lot of plutonium, we need some of it back for security.
Or we need it back as like a metaphor for saying we need a return on our investment and
Yes,
make the damn bomb.
Exactly. Yeah. But I did love going back to Frank's, you know, perspective in their testing, how it goes from a metal pipe to a cigar size. Like, I love the visual aspects to make the audience understand, like, what exactly they're doing. They're taking the same amount, the same volume, but literally compacting it into a small thing to increase the implosion rate.
And that's an interesting thing, and actors have mentioned this, and I read a couple interviews. We'll do news and gossip in a minute, but we talked about Hickey, Frank Winter,
yes,
talking about how he had to learn physics again. And there's a couple other actors who have said, I have to learn physics again, I have to do this. It's also on the show to teach the audience physics again, and you can't go over the top with it, but we need to learn a little bit of what it means when you compact all this stuff and why the plutonium matters and what it means to go from a pipe to a cigar, and who cares? And
absolutely, and I find it fascinating how they're also throwing like other physics theories out there. I mean, we had Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah.
I mean, any Physics 101 knows about the Schrodinger's cat theory. And I thought that was cool because, you know, I was taught that in physics.
Yeah, and they drop Heisenberg's name.
Heisenberg, yeah.
A little Breaking Bad, New Mexico reference maybe, I don't know. But they drop Heisenberg's name. So I think this stuff's going to keep coming up, and it'll be interesting to see. We, the audience, know what cities were bombed, what happened in World War II, all this stuff.
We know the outcome.
But we want to see how you get there, not just from a theatrical, scripted perspective of the relationships, but I think it also behooved them a little bit to start developing the story of the physics behind this and what this actually means in layman's terms. I don't want the equations.
No.
Give me something that I can understand as a non-science person. I hope that's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, you know, just the journey of how we got from point A to point B. That's the fun part of what shows can do for anybody. For any historical situations, whether it be America or anywhere in the world.
Yeah. We'll see. Do you think that Frank is as much of a loose cannon as Akeley and Charlie and some of these other people are portraying him to be?
I wouldn't say loose cannon, but I would definitely say more open-minded, because we know that Frank will go above and beyond and think outside the box and do whatever it takes to get his project going. And I don't think Reed is so, you know, so type A, and he knows whatever he knows, he will stick to. He won't go beyond the limits. He won't go the extra mile.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the difference between someone who will put the extra effort in.
Have you ever heard the quote, and I'm going to end up paraphrasing it a little bit, it's not exact, and there's certainly lots of different versions of it, but it's the idea of that first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they call you crazy, then they try to stop you, and then you win. And I don't know who said that, whatever, you know. But it's that idea of when you're doing something different, at first, if it's really crazy, people are going to ignore you. But then if maybe you're kind of correct about it, people might kind of try to laugh you off and say, oh, that idiot Frank, whatever, you know. And I think we saw that in the first episode a little bit when Charlie came up and Akeley talked to him. Then they start kind of calling you crazy. And when Akeley was in the meeting with Barath and with Frank, Akeley pretty much called him crazy. And the time is coming now, I believe, where Akeley or Charlie or whomever else is going to try to stop Frank. And then they're going to fear Frank, and then Frank's going to win. And
He's the one that comes out on top.
Exactly. And it's all coming to a head. I think we assume he'll come out on top in some way. Obviously, that has a lot of time to be played out. But we're getting there to the point where Frank used to be a laughingstock, used to be a joke, used to be ignored. Now he's kind of in that crazy stage. He's kind of a rogue cannon. But he's a threat to these guys, and they know it. They just don't want to admit it yet. He's coming. He's
good competition, and I think from episode 1, that for the show itself, I think they did a really good job of establishing who's the protagonist, who's the antagonist, and we know who Frank's the protagonist. He's the team that we're rooting for.
Yeah. And we are rooting for him, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, what happens if Sid, who said that he was ready to talk before he assaulted the military police officer, what happens if there actually was something to talk about? What happens if Frank, taking that leave of absence in 36, he did do something wrong? Do we really want Frank to win?
I still want Frank to win.
Okay, I just want Liza to win. So if that means Frank wins,
Right.
I just want Liza to be able to grow something. I want her to become.
I want all the women to win.
Oh, I don't know about that. Let's not go all of them. But I want Liza to be able to grow something, like become a PhD, go somewhere where you can teach botany or you can do whatever. You can have a garden, or you know what I mean. It's like you can be a professor.
Right.
You know, like go somewhere where you can work and do what you want to do.
Actually, utilize her skills, because
Exactly.
right now it kind of looks like she's been, demeaned to a housewife.
Absolutely. And she's nice enough and in love enough, and
she's smart enough.
You need good leaders, and leaders need good followers. And I'm not demeaning her by saying she's a follower, but she's not as much of a leader as Frank is. And it's important to have followers. Not everybody can be a leader. That being said, you can't stick her in a box because she does have a lot of skills herself.
No, and also, not just Liza, but the other woman that Charlie let into the lab, she mentioned that she also has a PhD. So we have a bunch of women who are very highly educated in one area, which is probably very rare, especially at that time.
I just got a great prediction, but I'm going to hold off on it.
Okay.
Let's do news and gossip first.
AfterBuzz TV News.
You just let me write down this prediction real fast, because if it escapes me, I'm going to be real pissed off. It's a barn burner.
That quote, by the way, was attributed to Gandhi.
Gandhi.
There we go.
New Ben, what is
Thank you,
the
Nick.
actual quote, New Ben? Do you have it up?
Yes, it's first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win.
There you go.
There you
First
go.
they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then they win. I added a couple extra things. Crazy, stop you, fear you. But it's the same idea. So let's use
Gotta
it.
love Gandhi.
They ignored Frank. They laughed at Frank. Now they're kind of starting to fight him, and pretty soon Frank's going to win. That's a great quote, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not just for Manhattan Project, it's for everything.
It's for life. That sounds like a
You
tattoo.
go against the grain. Go against the grain.
I'm going to get it tattooed right around my forehead.
Okay.
First you're going to ignore it, then you're going to laugh at it, but pretty soon I'm going to win. All right, we got two pieces of news today. The first one is ratings news. First week, the very first debut episode of Manhattan did 2.2 million viewers on WGN America. Marisa, quiz for you. Salem is the first scripted show for WGN. Manhattan is the second. How many did Salem do in week 1?
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to go back 13 weeks. I want to say around 1 point something.
Salem did 2.3
2.3, okay.
in week 1. So 2.2 is very good. Didn't quite over.
And this isn't like a well broadcasted network show like
Exactly.
Everything else. So like to have pulling those numbers for such a small network, that's great for them.
Oh, there's a lot of basic cable networks that would love 2.5 a night. Believe me, I watch a lot of shows for AfterBuzz that ain't getting 2.5 a night.
CW averages like those numbers with their shows.
Yeah.
But that's
so.
smaller.
And this is WGN, and that's the other thing I was going to mention. I'm glad you brought that up. WGN's president and general manager, Matt Chernis, had great corporate speak to say about it. He said, quote, "We are very pleased with the critical reception as well as the audience turnout for Manhattan and see it as a significant step forward in establishing WGN America as a destination for high-quality programming." Yes. That's great, Matt. Thank you for that corporate PR talk. But, I mean, he is right. I do like that Salem was very well produced. If nobody watched it, it was WGN's first show. Salem was very well produced. It was interesting. It was shot well. I think Manhattan thus far exceeds everything Salem did. up through the first 2 episodes. And that's not a knock on Salem. I just think Manhattan does take another step forward for them.
Yeah, and a lot of times with Salem, that was more character-driven, and then this one's more story-driven narrative.
Yeah.
Like Frank has to do this, and X, Y, and Z. So I feel like there's more narrative-driven.
And here's the kicker, too, with WGN. We've mentioned it before, but this telecast, Manhattan, airs in all 33 of WGN America's markets. The problem is those markets only cover 60% of the U.S. households. So if they can pull in 2.2, 2.3 million on 60% of households, imagine what they do with the reach of like TNT or A&E or something. That's on them to get there, but I got to believe that this is a pretty good start for them.
Absolutely, and those numbers are amazing, especially, and I predict that those numbers are going to go up like every single week.
Making your first prediction, I like it. All right, second piece of news.
I have faith in the show.
Second piece of news, it's not numbers, it's something more fun. Rachel Brosnahan, who plays Abby Isaacs, I'm glad we're talking about her because she had such a part in this thing.
She's fun.
She went on zaptoit.com, did a hilarious interview, so let me read you some of the answers. Zaptoit asked her, they said, which is more challenging, 40s fashion or nuclear physics? And she said, nuclear physics. They said, what did you actually know about the Manhattan Project before you auditioned for the role? And she said, quote, not enough. I was kind of mad that I didn't learn about it in school. I had learned loosely about the development of the bomb, but I had no idea about this strange and isolated community and the families that made such an impact during this pivotal time. They also asked her, and you will love this, Marissa, they said, if you could hang out with a real Manhattan scientist, who would you pick? And she said, the Manhattan Project housed some of the world's most influential minds, but just one, Oppenheimer. I'd love to hear about the project and the community from his perspective, and rumor has it he was quite the ladies' man.
I mean, he's smart. That's sexy.
And then this, and I'm going to open this question up to you before I read Rachel's response. Marry, kiss, and kick to the curb.
Ooh.
Einstein, Oppenheimer, and Fermi.
Oh, okay. Or do you want me to answer that?
Go first.
Okay. I would probably marry Oppenheimer.
Okay.
What was marry?
Marry, kiss, and kick to the curb.
Kiss Einstein, and then kick to the curb, the last one.
Okay, that's interesting. She said, I think they're all equally brilliant and have made remarkable contributions that forever changed the face of science. She's been coached by a PR person with that answer. But she said, that aside, here goes. I'd marry Einstein because, hey, that hair. I'd kiss Oppie because I've got to see if the rumors are true. And I'd kick Fermi to the curb because he works too much and probably never cleans the house.
Those are very good, reasonable answers.
There you go.
Right.
So
very,
Rachel Brosnan,
very thought out.
That's an interview with zaptoit.com. Pretty funny stuff. They've got a bunch of other interviews on Zaptoit with a lot of Manhattan actors, so we'll be doing some of that periodically over the week. But
she seems like she has a great personality.
Oh, she's got to for being somebody like Abby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and her character in and of itself is very fun.
Exactly. Yeah, I can see why Charlie married her.
Yeah, I can see it too.
All right, let's get to predictions.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Real quick, new Ben, I'd be interested to hear his opinion. Would you marry Oppenheimer or Einstein, new Ben?
I don't know who Oppenheimer is.
He was the lead Manhattan Project scientist, man. He created the A-bomb.
I didn't know. I know who Fermi is. I know who Fermi and Einstein are. Those are actually,
big guys.
I mean,
yeah.
Maybe you should go back to high school and learn a little bit more about Oppenheimer.
I'm kind of disappointed, new Ben. I don't know if we should bring you back for the Twitter round. All right, we will. I'm just teasing. Let's get to predictions. Go first.
I think so we haven't seen the last episode, even though he's dead. I think they showed in the preview his body and I think we're gonna finally find out that I'm gonna root for him that he wasn't a spy.
Okay.
He wasn't a spy.
My prediction's a little out there. This is a little Salem-y. If you watch Salem kind of took a left turn at a lot of places and went way off history. And I don't know if Manhattan's going to go this far off. But with Liza's skills and her education and her talent, don't look at me like that.
They're going to use it.
Exactly. She's either going to kind of start her own team in some way. She's going to find out what's going on and be able to help. Botany is not like nuclear physics, but I am certain that she has knowledge and skills of materials and goods and things and chemicals that she can help somebody at some point, and she's either going to have a breakthrough for Frank or she's going to get poached by Akeley, or I don't know, but I think she is too intelligent to sit at home this entire season.
I don't think Akeley's going to go to her. I think Frank's going to have a vulnerable moment and actually tell Liza what's going on. I think Frank has to tell someone because you can see it's eating him up and it's eating their marriage up. And I think one of the only ways to keep the marriage going is to be honest and tell the truth.
Interesting.
And because Liza is so educated, I think Frank's going to let her on the team. But not, of course, not let like everyone, all the other groups know that they have a woman part of the team. But he's going to use her resources.
She's going to be working in some way, or she's going to find something by accident that are his papers or something that she shouldn't have found or whatever, and she's going to see stuff, and she's going to be able to connect the dots and make sense of something he couldn't make sense of, I think. I
mean, he already has one woman on the team. When they were doing the testing, that there was the woman.
Yeah.
I'm completely forgetting her name.
I don't know if we were given her name this episode.
I don't think so either. But we know that Frank is open to having women on the team, so... Why not add his
Frank
wife?
needs to take all he can get right now, and he would obviously
Absolutely.
trust Liza, so I think it'd be different than just like, oh, it's a woman. He knows how smart she is, he respects her enough, so yeah, I think it's natural that she'd be coming on, whenever that is.
And then, of course, I think we're going to say it every week, that Charlie's eventually going to go to Frank's team.
Well, here's my question, though, because in the previews, my last prediction that I just wonder about is one of the preview things mentions Frank has been accused of being a spy by the United States government.
Espionage.
How far does that go?
I don't know, because we also see tonight's episode that Frank could tell off the Colonel. I mean, he told off Colonel Kaiser's like, use your power. So the fact that Frank could tell people of that high status and not get any chastising, any punishment for that, that he could definitely use his resources, his pull to get out of whatever they're accusing him of.
Stop acting like a guest in your own goddamn house. That's a great line. I love it.
So good.
All right, that's it for the show this week. Let's do some Twitter links or Instagram or Snapchat or Vine or whatever it is you're on. Marissa, where can they find you?
Well, I don't have Snapchat and Vine, but you can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Serafini TV.
What about you, new Ben? Can they tweet you if they want to?
You can tweet me at NickDBot on the Twitter.
How do you spell that?
That's NickDBot.
NickDBot. Oh, like almost like robots.
Yeah.
Nick D-Bot.
It's my name, actually.
Is it really?
Yeah, Nicholas Daniel Bottomley.
Oh, the middle D is...
go.
I got you.
Some
Nick
nice trivia for you.
D-Bot. I love it. That is good trivia. We'll talk about that on News and Gossip next week. We'll do Nick's backstory and all his stuff. You guys can tweet me at Bobby DeMuro. Also, if you're on Twitter, you want to watch a cool documentary, I just directed and released one. It's on Skid Row, the homeless district in Los Angeles. It is called Skid Row Tuesdays. So either hit the hashtag on Twitter, Skid Row Tuesdays, or go on YouTube, type in Skid Row Tuesdays. It's on there. It is totally free to watch. Marissa, have you watched it yet?
I haven't yet, but I will over this weekend.
Wow. I was getting great reviews for everybody but Marissa.
I will tell you what my thoughts are on it. I'm sure it's amazing. I don't doubt.
I'm a little hurt. I'm going to cry. I got to wrap up the show before I start crying.
I'm saving it up because, it's like YouTube. If you watch it all at once, you can't cherish it. So...
Interesting, politically correct answer. You barely survived. That's it on Manhattan this week, guys. We will be back next week. You are out of town next week, so you'll be calling into the show.
I will call into the show.
But we'll still be here, obviously.
However, my presence will still be felt.
Absolutely. Unfortunately for some.
Unfortunately.
You will still be here. We'll be here next week. Thank you guys for joining us on Manhattan this week on AfterBuzz TV. Remember, hit like on YouTube, subscribe to us on iTunes, do all that good stuff. We'll see you guys a week from today.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.